Good morning. So here we are again, episode 2, week 2 of this crazy challenge that we've set ourselves for doing this podcast. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm going to use the cards to answer that question.
Yeah,
Um,
we do.
because I and I realized when it was on Spotify that people who don't know what the cards are, can't see them, will have no idea what we're talking about. So I'm going to try and verbally explain what I'm doing as well and ask my husband to leave the room with his noisy computer. Excellent. The unedited version. So um, we've got these scales of energy, high and low. And I would say I am lower energy, but I've picked the conflicted card because there's these waves of energy that come, and then I'm like, oh, and then a wave of energy. So on the energy scale, I'm kind of hopping about a bit. Um, and then we've got this scale of ease to unease. And I would say the majority of what I'm feeling right now is unease. It's lovely to jump on this call with you because it's bringing a sense of ease. So the two cards I've picked today are I feel overwhelmed because although my list has come down, I now feel like I've forgotten something, and you're like, oh, I've done the things on my list, but I feel like there should be more.
The natural panic that, of course, you are going to have the days before you leave for your
What
big
have I missed? And then, so that's in the lower energy, lower ease quadrant. And then, will it kill you? No, get on with it then. We've just reached that point where it's like, just crack on and, stop
trip.
faffing.
The reality is that in 24 hours you are leaving. You've done so much, you've come so far, and all will be well. Because yes, there will be things that you've forgotten, and yes, there will be things on your list that you haven't done, but it's actually not going to make a huge difference, and it is not going to affect the long-term thing. So yeah, you just have to get on with it today. Just get on with it, and then get on your bike tomorrow, and off you go. And
But in the cold, it's gonna be cold. I've packed for warmth and I've got
it
to, yeah, dig out my warm things.
I mean, this is, the universe getting you ready for not living in Spain anymore.
I know, right?
It's not warm everywhere else. It's really cold because it's like autumn, winter. So this is good. This is like, okay, get you in the zone, in the cold zone, get yourself ready, get on your bike and just go. It's gonna
Get
be,
on your bike. How
yeah.
are you today? Where are you?
Obviously, I didn't prep before this, so I haven't chosen my cards. Looking at them now, I would say I'm probably slightly more high energy, not massively. I mean, it's very early on Monday morning, so you're never going to get huge bouts of high energy for me at the beginning of the week. And I don't know if I'm ease or unease. Maybe unease. I don't know why. I don't feel like I'm uneasy about anything, but let's go with that. That's what my body is saying. And I'm going to choose I feel anxious. And that's it. That's my card for today. But it's a little bit weird because I don't actually know what I feel anxious about. And
Mm,
this whole idea around anxiety, which, we have this image of, oh, panic attacks and palpitations. And actually, there are so many different levels of anxiety
mm,
we normally associate it with. It's like the extreme end where
yeah,
it becomes so overwhelming and can become really debilitating and stopping us. But there's so much that comes before that.
yeah,
And I think that's where I am today. But I don't
yeah.
know why. I have absolutely no idea why, what's going on with me this morning.
Let's see where you are at the end.
Hopefully, I'm like, I'm so calm and zen. If you got a card for that, that would be really nice before I get on with the rest of my day.
Absolutely. So today we are going to talk about connection.
We are.
And as always, ill prepared and under investigated, but a sort of felt sense of connection. And we briefly spoke about it yesterday when we actually met face to face, and here we are online. And I think a lot of what I'm doing and what's getting me up and doing it is the thought of connection. So when I'm riding around the world to see people face to face, so much of that is about actually being in physical space with people. So connection for me is very much about, I was going to say proximity, but like we said yesterday, actually we met online
Yeah.
and connected instantly.
Say.
So there's something about proximity and the importance of connection in the physical space. And also, it's totally possible in this virtual space as well. I just think connection is really important, however, we either choose to do it or have the capacity to do it. I just think connection is really, really important.
It's interesting that you talk about the proximity thing because, as you well know, I like to touch. And physical touch is so important. We talk a lot about love languages and
Mm,
how we express our love and how we receive it. And touch is very much part of that whole game for me. Um, so I 100% agree with proximity being a key part of connection. But I also agree that it's absolutely not necessary and that you can connect with people and with yourselves and with situations without having to be there. Because when the magic happens, when, that kind of chispa, can't even think of the word in English today. Um, when the spark happens,
yeah,
it just happens. And it
yeah,
doesn't matter whether you've met online, whether someone's on the other side of the world.
yeah.
Connection can be so much more than proximity.
Mm.
Um,
I'm gonna dive because that's bringing up because we do this format of past, present, future, and in the past when I worked in IT global outsourcing and would have these relationships with people around the world, and at Saga Holidays, my first job was working with people in the US and across Europe, and sometimes I wouldn't meet them. And we only had phones then. So that we're talking late 90s, right? So before video calls was a thing, we'd be talking on the phone and building those relationships
yeah.
remotely. You can't really even call it virtually because there wasn't this virtual space. Because I think now we're able to see each other. That brings another dimension of connection. And yet we were still able, I mean, I think about my grandparents and the letters they wrote during the war to stay connected.
So
No phone calls
beautiful.
and years of what could have created disconnection. Actually, when you read some of the letters that they wrote to each other, that deep communication that brought about that connection between them. And I think we've forgotten how to do that. We rely so heavily on, you know, put your screen on, we've got to see each other, but actually connection can be so much more than that visual sight. I'm not
And
saying it,
also,
but it definitely helps.
like with the idea of letter writing,
Mm.
how much easier, maybe that's the word, it is to then be vulnerable in that space. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that was created, with the correspondence, was people opening up their hearts and souls because they had the time to think about what they were going to say and they had the time to think about what they wanted to write. And it was so much more intentional than when we, jump on a video call like, hi, how are you doing? What are you doing? Like the other day, you and I, we were on the phone on a Zoom thing for an hour and a half. You
Yeah.
were hanging out the washing and I was work on here and then I was doing some cooking and we were together in that
Yeah.
whole space, you know, and it was
Yeah.
lovely, like so lovely. And I live doing that both with my best friend and with my sister. I'm always on a call with somebody when I'm at home pottering around. And it's really lovely because you get to form part of the other person's life in the day to day, little bits that you wouldn't normally share. But maybe you also don't create the intentional space where it's like, okay, right, now let's connect. Let's
Yeah.
sit down, let's share. Let me tell you why I'm anxious today, even though I don't know. But by the time we get to the end of it, I probably will.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between intentional and non-intentional, I think.
Mhm.
gain at the end of it.
Mm. What would
When
you say your experience of connection has been in the past?
um I don't know if I know how to describe it really. It's always been a huge thing for me. Um,
Mm.
Yesterday, I was having lunch with my husband, and we were sat, talking about life, and it's one of those deep conversations. And I was saying how friendships and people outside of my core family, like my chosen family, have always been so important to me. Uh, like really important. Select people have always had a huge part in my life, and I've always created space for that because I know that it brings something extra to the table for me.
Mm.
And so I've got different, as most of us do, I've got, different friends for different things. And so they're all kind of, adding something in and building me up and making me feel um like I'm then strong enough to go out into the world and do all of the things that I want.
Yeah.
So I think that's what, when you asked me about connection in the past, that's what comes to mind. It's about the
Mm.
people that I've then chosen to
Mm.
all part of my life. And let's be 100% honest, how in the last few years I've had to intentionally choose those people
Yeah.
more wisely, because it used to be this huge pot of people. And that wasn't,
Mm.
the space was too big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was
Yeah, I
way.
hear. I think because there's something about the connection with self, isn't there? I mean, I grew up changing schools, changing friendship groups, not through choice. So
Mm.
having to rebuild connections and disconnect from people. And I think what I got from that is a deep connection with myself, although there was years of just absence of connection in some way. Um, so that, like you say, when you start intentionally choosing who you want to spend your time and energy with, I think when I found that deep connection with myself, it was like I realized how little.
Done that in the past.
So that, there is something about that, isn't there? That we choose these connections with others, and a wise boss of mine used to call them radiators and drains. So
Nice.
and so that can very quickly help you establish, is this person a radiator or a drain, and is this connection, you know, um, serving sounds a bit, but do you know what I mean? Is this connection still?
I think that is a bad word. I know you've hesitated, like, oh, serving, but it's serving a purpose in your life on an emotional level,
Mm.
and that's not a negative thing. Is this person bringing something to the table for me? That doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and use them, because
Yeah,
hopefully, if it's like a positive connection for both of you, you're doing that for the other person as well.
exactly. That
So it's
reciprocal
not,
nature.
yeah,
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
negative thing, that that they are serving some purpose in your life.
Mm.
It's not take, it's not a drain. It doesn't have to be just because they are serving this purpose, or this need that you have, whatever it is. And again, that's kind of like, how much are we judging ourselves by looking at it in that way?
Mm.
It's kind of like, oh no, don't let them serve you, don't let them have a pet. But it's like, of course,
Yeah,
it's transactional. And transactional doesn't have to be this negative, draining thing. It can actually be a lovely thing when you're both giving something
yeah,
and you're both taking something. I mean, that's the ideal solution, really.
yeah, yeah. So what's your current present experience of connection, would you say?
Um, Trying not to lose that connection with myself. That's definitely number one on the list.
Yeah.
I was listening to when you were talking about, oh, there was this time of real disconnect, and then you connected with yourself, and it was like, oh my God, what have I been missing? I've been completely lost along the way. And I think that you have to go through certain things. You don't just, unless you're very lucky and very wise. You don't normally get that when you're in your teens or your 20s. You're too busy just being like, woo, living your life and trying to figure out who you are. And then I think that the space opens up as we get a little bit older to then look back and reflect on what we've done, what's worked, what hasn't, how are we feeling, what do we want out of life. And that then allows, it kind of opens the door to the possibility of being able to connect in a different way. And I have this challenge, struggle every day to not forget to connect with myself. I mean, everything that I do work-wise, if anybody knows anything about me, anything that I publish, anybody has worked with me, one of my main phrases, so to speak, is don't forget to connect with yourself, fill your own cup before you go out and
Yeah.
connect and fill the cups of others. Otherwise, it's not going to work long term. You are not going to be happy. You're going to drain yourself of energy. And, in a completely non-selfish way, this is where we need to let go of this idea of what is right and what is wrong.
Mm.
Self-love is not selfish. It's
Yeah.
not. It's preservation. It's making sure that, I am as happy and as healthy as I can possibly be so that then I can go out and give the best
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
So my present connection
Yeah.
challenge is to not forget to do that, which
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and it very much depends on the circle you're with. So in corporate life, often that overwork, burnout, keep giving more, you give so much. And because people around you are doing the same, unless you are in an environment where that self-care is
Encourage.
endorsed and encouraged and all of the rest of it, you kind of try and keep up with the Joneses. And so everyone's, those connections then create this environment or culture of actually just keep going until you burn out.
which
And
I
that,
which I
yeah, exactly.
did
Yeah,
and can very quickly, go back into that if I'm not careful.
yeah,
Did
yeah.
on chat GPT, there's a thing, it's like roast me, roast
Yeah,
me. And so, and it was the most hilarious thing that it came back with. And it was kind of like, you've made wearing pajamas, you've turned wearing pajamas into an art form. And I was wetting myself. And I sent it to my sister and to my best friend. And they were both like, this is so weird how well Jack
did it know?
gives. And yeah, I think I have. I've turned pajama wearing into an art form.
I'm
I,
gonna have to get myself roasted.
yeah. But
Uh,
yeah, like you said, it's depends on the people that you're with,
yeah,
because
yeah,
we quite often look outside to get permission to be able to do these things. So if we're
yeah,
surrounded by people that are also, you know, um, prioritizing things like that, we allow ourselves to.
exactly. I
We're
just think
surrounded
it's
by people that don't, and we're like, oh no, I can't do that either.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Not the way it should be.
No, exactly. It's, it becomes an expectation, doesn't it? And anything else seems lazy. I think that was one of the other senses I got. Well, if I'm not always on, then I'm lazy. So, so the future, I think, is quite interesting because as I look out into the immediate future, like the next week and month, and meeting these connections, because they're connections on LinkedIn, right? They're literally called connections.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's the worst.
I don't know them. I, we've connected via email, so I don't think I've even done video calls with any of them yet. And yeah, I'm going. So this time next week, I'm going to be in Tunisia with a group of people I don't know, but I'm connected with, and the experience then of what happens. How does that real human connection happen, if at all? I don't know. How do I can only show up as me. That's the one thing I have learned through connecting with myself is this is who I am.
Hello.
This is it. and to be authentically me and not try and, you know, there's a fine line, isn't there, between not trying to fit in with others, yet having cultural awareness and empathy for the environment you find yourself in, so that you don't show up as this kind of like, you know, force that might intimidate others.
And then
So have conscious,
overwhelming for the others.
yeah, well, exactly, yeah. So you know, so that the connection feels very human.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to say spiritual then.
It, then use that word. Spiritual doesn't, spiritual isn't religious. Spiritual is that there's just this, for me, in my world,
Yeah, yeah,
another level,
yeah.
not just here, it's not just the physical. And that is what you're creating in these interviews. It's a connection that goes beyond just what you said at the beginning, proximity.
Yeah, the breathing, I think, is massive with that. Just those three breaths that remove something, whether that's the ego or something, just being connected with someone through breath.
I mean, it grounds you in the presence. I mean, I think that in itself is so powerful. And the fact that you're both doing it together, you ground yourself together in the present before you move forward. So, how is that not going to create this special connection?
Mm, mm. And just reflecting on that, because I give people the option, do they want to lead or should I? Do you want eyes open or eyes closed? So there's these choices to navigate coming into that breath. And to be very mindful of how I word that when I'm with these people I've never met.
From a
So
different culture as well. Like you said, this is the, we're now moving into a different
exactly,
space.
yeah. So just seeing how in that first interaction
Mhm,
to
mhm.
make that connection feel equal.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good word.
Yeah. What about you? Connection for you in the future?
It will be interesting. Tune in to episode 3 to hear Lindsay
To find out.
first that first group. Connection in the future. I in November am going to be, the word is hosting, but I don't like that word. Um, I am going to be the
Facilitating?
facilitating. Okay, all right, we'll choose that one. There is an amazing networking group here in Spain, run by Ali Mian. Let's give her a shout out.
Yeah.
Called Costa Women, and she has created this incredible space throughout the whole of the country, and the islands, because it's now there. Tens and thousands of women, that basically come together and walk alongside one another, whilst they grow as people, as business women, and she's got this lovely space. And I am now lucky enough to be facilitating, I'll use that word, uh, a group
Holding space.
here in Compta. And there's another opportunity that's come up that's very similar. So what I'm seeing and foreseeing, is the idea of connection that links to another thing that I believe so strongly in, which is creating our tribe, finding our people, creating our tribe. We were not born to be here and do it alone.
Yeah.
We need our people. We absolutely need our people. And I need my people in all the different areas of life. Uh,
Mm,
so this idea of connection in the future takes me to that now, to finding a way that together with this group of women, together, we can create a space where we support each other, help each other, um, cuddle each other, let's go back to touching, and are just there whilst we all walk along this journey of being, business people in Spain, which is interesting. We'll use that word.
yeah.
So that's the first thing that comes up. But obviously, before all of that is maintaining this connection with myself
Mm,
and not forgetting. that if I don't do that, it doesn't matter where else I want to connect. It's absolutely
Yeah,
not going to
yeah.
work. So those two things kind of side by side.
Yeah, because I think that positive psychology community was the most powerful connection, and that's what kind of kicked this project off. And I'll be going full circle, navigating across the world where there's very little positive psychology, that I can find at the moment. I can't find people, but that I'll be in Australia and reconnecting back into that positive psychology community, not at the end, but maybe at a halfway point of this trip.
At the
Um,
end of the research part, so at
yeah,
the
yeah,
end
yeah,
of
exactly.
the interview side.
But that positive psychology community are the ones that kind of hold you to account for that self-care, hold you to account to do the things to keep yourself connected, both in community and with yourself. And I think that has been by far the most impactful thing in my life around connection and all the other good stuff that's happened as a result.
Because, like you just, like you were saying before, when you surround yourself with those people, that's when we allow ourselves to have the permission, to
Exactly.
get permission to actually do it. So even if they're not holding you accountable, which is so amazing and great and really necessary as well, the fact that you're just part of this community where everyone's going, God, yeah, like let's look after ourselves. Let's not forget that, we need to actually stop sometimes, take a step back and be like, no, sorry guys, not today. Yeah, I can't go there because I'm just not, I can't. I don't
My
have,
cup is empty.
my cup is empty.
But it was interesting this morning's chat. It's I'm on number 93. Ali Maloney shared the loving kindness meditation, which has come up before. So it's not the first time it's come up in 93 chats. It's just, it seemed to really land today. Sometimes things land, and that loving kindness meditation starts with the connection with the self. So it sort of wraps everything we've been talking about in a lovely, neat bow. So, that connection with self, the connection with the immediate people, like our tribe that we're talking about, but then expanding that out beyond self, community, and into the world. And that's made me really emotional, because it's like that's what this is all about, right? Is reminding ourselves of who we really are, reminding ourselves of the simple things we can do to connect with ourselves and each other, and that they do make a massive difference. Yeah, so that's
And also how that works on so many different levels. So what you're doing, like you said, that is exactly what, like the theory behind this trip that you're going on. And it's going to be so amazing. And you are going to connect and you are going to create these pockets of magic for people. And I say that having lived through some of it with you, like I know that this is going to happen and it's going to be not just an amazing experience for you, but for everybody that then gets to, be part of it. And so you're going out on this international stage, and the community that you are going to be working in is going to be huge. And also how we can do that on such a small scale, and it makes just as big a difference. So something as simple as, now I'm going to get emotional as well, like, going out in the street. So here in Spain, one of the things that I love about living here, everything takes so much longer. I mean, that can be a bit of a problem sometimes when you just want to go and buy some milk and it's an hour and a half later and you're still in the supermarket because you've bumped into, 10 old ladies and they all want to have a chat and you want to chat to them, and then, it's just impossible to get on with your day. But the lovely side of that is that people connect all the time. You are walking down the street, people look at you in the eyes, people say, Buenos dias. People might even say, Morning, how are you doing? And you can either stop or not. But there's this intent to connect with people all the time. And one of the things that, I try and remind my son, but obviously he's 13, so he doesn't listen to most of what I say at the minute, is you never know what that one word or that one smile or that one interaction has meant for the other person. You don't know where that other person is coming from. And for me, the biggest pandemic that we've got in the world is loneliness.
You're right.
And so many people are alone, and so many people feel alone, even when they're surrounded by a million other people. And
Yeah.
so that one true interaction, that one, connection of just as simple as, morning, and
Yeah.
looking at them and smiling, or how are you doing? How's your day? How's your uncle, son, dog, job going? We have no idea what that can mean to the other person.
Absolutely. And I come full circle back, having suffered and struggled with loneliness, just such gut-wrenching, heartbreaking loneliness, that connection with the self
Mhm.
is so, so important. And if everyone on the planet had a deep connection and deep love for the self, we would change the world. Because people go out there with fear, with anger, with, feeling that they're not enough, feeling that they're empty, um, because they're searching for it outside of themselves. It's, is it somewhere else, when actually everything you need is within you? And then when you connect with others, it's through something so much deeper than the need to connect. It's a want, a desire. You get to connect with others.
The
That's
power of language, the difference between I have to do this, I need to I want to, I'm going to, and how that just shifts as well, almost the energy behind what you're doing. I mean, the problem is it comes back to exactly what we were saying before. People don't do that because one, they don't know how to.
mm,
Two, because this royal we society, has told them that they're not allowed to. And that's the problem, that until, you know, on billboards and on the TV and, in magazines or on TikTok for, the younger generation, until that, which it is changing, and it absolutely is changing. I work with a lot of younger people and teenagers and young adults, and there is this shift, and they connect so quickly with the idea of self-love. It's
yep,
like within 2 3 sessions of working with a young person, they're like, oh, all right, and then off they go, and they do it, and you see huge change very quickly. With adults, you have to undo so many things. You have to take off all of those layers just for them to get to the point where they believe that they are worthy.
exactly. And this is where strengths work, I think, is massively powerful, because when you can see that you are worthy of that love, that you are good enough, and when you operate from a strengths-based perspective, suddenly that elevation and the connection that you can have with yourself and each other, I think, is just, that's why I love strengths work so much.
I
Yeah,
what you mean, because obviously not everybody knows what we're talking about, connecting with our strengths and our talents and our, the things that we've achieved,
yeah.
to then remind ourselves of how worthy we are and all of the things that we've done. Yeah, is
So,
that
I mean, we can put the free resource in. I mean, there's many strengths finding tools. The free one is VIA, values in action character.org, which we can put the link somewhere. Show note. Is that where it goes?
I don't know. This is only episode 2. We don't know anything yet.
So, you can do your VIA survey and find out what your top strengths are, and just have that as a platform for communication and connection with others.
Yeah.
Um, so we can pop that in.
Yeah, definitely Facebook. Facebook allow us to put things. Instagram, not so much. And then we'll put it on YouTube as well. We'll put some links somewhere. You might have to dig in order to find it because we're still not sure exactly where.
Still feeling our way. Use our strengths.
Yeah.
Cool. So, shall we see where we're at the end of this conversation with our navigation across the clarity compass? Because I am feeling, well, firstly, thank you. Thank you for holding this space. it feels really important. And if all that happens is you and I just get together and connect on a weekly basis, thank you.
We don't need anything else, really, do we? We're
If
so
it, if it helps one other human outside of this conversation, that's worth every single second of time it takes us to get it out there into the God knows where. But just thank you. So I can feel the energy. Just I think I'm drawn to this card. I trust in a higher power. I I there's this expansiveness, there's something that connects us all as humans, and that's where I feel.
That's really funny because I've been taken into the green area as well. And I think I am going to choose I feel grateful.
Oh,
I feel grateful. I feel oh, grateful for my life, grateful for you, grateful for the connections that I have, the people. Like I got really emotional yesterday when Jose and I were talking about it, and I was trying to put into words why these people were so important in my life. You were there, you were one of them. Um, and it is because even though we said before, let's change from need to want, but there is a part of me that where I am on my journey, I need I need you, and I need my special people and my family, which is my absolute, rock. And that I need it in order to be able to connect with myself.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of like you guys go back to giving permission, you give me permission, but you also remind me when I'm going off track, which happens frequently. So there's different people in different spaces that, they're like, hey, what are you doing?
yeah,
No,
yeah, 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 yeah.
don't do that. Go back to yourself and have a little think about it. And yeah, I feel very
Yeah.
grateful for that. And that, we have found our way to each other and our way to create this space, which, is magical. For me, it's
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to give another resource for people who are feeling genuinely alone and aren't lucky enough to have those family connections, those friends. I remember when I got divorced, a lot of friends just disappeared, and I felt very alone. And I was lucky enough to find a therapist, Joe Brahm, who did Reiki and osteopathy and all kinds of other magic. And she introduced me to Osho Zen tarot cards, which at the time I was like, what the fuck? I said we were going to seriously. And she said, just try them. She said, because I was very lost, very confused. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I was like, what have I done? This is a disaster. Um, and they have by far been one of the most powerful ways to connect with myself, get clarity on those decisions, and kind of like, um, when you're in a lonely, dark place and everything seems to just be bearing down on you, they actually gave me a way out. Now I just use them to, they're just a gift. So
yeah.
if anyone listening to this is feeling alone and like they haven't got anyone to reach out to, there is an online version of Osho Zen
Oh
that
wow.
just give that voice, that space, that connection, that they might be lacking. So
I mean, and we're going to finish in a minute, but I just wanted to just to add something from what you've just said. You were lost, you were going through your divorce, and you're like, what should I do? And how you found this therapist that through the body allowed you to connect. And that's when I chose the type of coaching that I do, the reason that it resonated so much with me was because of this idea of the triangle, cognition, our thoughts, thought processes, what's going on there, the other side, emotions. Oh, yes, let's get into the emotions. I love that bit. But the third side of the triangle, which for me personally had been lacking in my own journey, and especially where I was coming from, where my body had just decided to, give up and be like, yeah, well, we're not doing this anymore,
Yep.
is how we are a triangle. And like my body shape, I'm a pear. So I actually look like a triangle. And so there's these three elements that form a whole. And
Yeah.
so, if we can't, or if we're struggling to connect with ourselves through our thought processes, because maybe our anxiety is so high that, and our thoughts are just going a million miles an hour, and, I can't snap out of this. Oh my God, I'm in panic, I'm in fear, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm lost, my life is shit, everything's going to pot, you know
Yeah.
we've got two other ways. One is the emotions. Maybe the emotions are just too much at the time. Maybe it's too overwhelming to, feel the fear that you're feeling.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
we have this third way to connect, and that is through the body. And sometimes that's when we're first starting on this journey, that's actually the nicest, easiest, in very huge inverted commas, but the easiest way to connect with ourselves is to go in through the body. So that's where things like Reiki and massage and osteopathy um, allow us, they open just another door, and it can be just as powerful as all of the other things. I just want to say
Absolutely.
that before we go.
It's a journey, isn't it?
Is
Amazing. So grateful. Thank you. Mhm.
So this is our last, we're only on number two, but this is our last episode with us both in the same country. This time next week, you will be traveling the world.
I will be in Africa this
You
time
will
next
be
week.
in Africa, and you will be doing what
The
we
long way round.
It's a very long way round, but don't worry about that. You will be connecting with the world, and then we're going to connect next week so you can tell us all about it. Tell us where you're at. Hopefully, you won't be too mental, but if you are, we'll get into that anyway, and that will all be fine. All will be well.
Thank you. Mhm.
Well,
Yeah. Until
close
next.
this off. Let's close it with my gratitude and with your, feeling like there's a higher power. And we'll reconvene next week and take it from there.
Mwah.
I love you. Have
Love
a very
you.
safe trip. And yeah, I'll speak to you in a week.
Love you. Bye. Mwah.
Bye.